Good morning. Today we'll be talking about anesthesia for pediatric surgeries. This is for BSc AOTT students. So, what are the specific learning objectives? The anatomical and physiological changes in pediatric age group, pre-anesthetic evaluation, pre-operative preparation, planning for anesthesia technique, intraoperative anesthetic management, and post-operative care. So, we will be discussing in these terms. So, pediatric patients are not small adults. Understand that they are not small adults. They are different physiology compared to adults. Anesthesia for children has its own challenges. So, how you can divide pediatric age group? You can divide them into neonate, infant, toddler, and young children. 0 to 1 month, or you can take if you exactly it is 28 days as neonates. Then 1 month to 12 months they are called infants, and 1 to 3 years they will be called as toddlers, and 3 to 12 years they are young children. The physiology changes very rapidly in this age group. So anatomical changes. So what are all the anatomical changes you can see in a pediatric patient? One is large head. Okay, there was occiput is little bit bigger. Then large tongue and short mandible. So what happens is compared to your mandible, the tongue is large. So what happens is whenever child goes into sleep or child is in sedation, it can obstruct the pharynx and it can cause upper airway obstruction. Okay, then U-shaped and floppy epiglottis. So whenever you do a laryngoscopy, because of the U-shaped epiglottis and floppy epiglottis, so it can obstruct the view of the vocal cord. Then you have a bow-shaped vocal cords. So, and then anterior and higher larynx, C4 and C5. In adults, it is C5 and C6 level. It will be there. So all these will lead to difficult intubation. Then what you have is enlarged adenoid and tonsils. So there will be a difficult mask ventilation due to the obstruction. Since the adenoids and these tonsils are enlarged, whenever you do a mask ventilation and you give a positive pressure ventilation, the air which you are going may not go inside. Then you have a funnel shaped airway with the subglottic area at the narrowest part. In adults, the vocal cord is the narrowest part, but in children, the post-cricoid area is the narrowest part. So what happens is whenever you pass the tube, after the tube cross the vocal cord, you will feel a resistance to pass the endotracheal tube. Then you have very friable mucosa, so it is very easily edematous. So after extubation or multiple attempts of intubation can lead to airway edema, and after extubation, post extubation, they can have difficult in breathing. Okay. Then tracheal bifurcation for both lungs are equal at 55 degrees. Okay. So in adults, the left trachea is um, left tracheal bifurcation, which is actually acute compared to the right one, and the airway is easily collapsible. So as you can see in this picture, so there is a large occiput, large tongue, okay, and C3 and C4 level there will be larynx. Okay, so as you can see here, the trachea is funnel shaped in children. So this is the diagram which is showing the floppy epiglottis and bow shaped vocal cords. So Okay, so what are the physiological changes you can see? First, we will talk about respiratory system. The intercostal muscles and diaphragm, they are weaker, so they are very less efficient for ventilation, and there will be easy fatigability. Alveoli is not fully developed till 8 years of age, so easily collapsible alveoli you can see. So they will end up in any uh, uh, chance of alveoli getting collapsed, then it will be very difficult for reopen it. Then the respiratory rate is high, reduced lung compliance, and low functional residual capacity. So what is functional residual capacity is, it is the amount of air present in the lung once you have expired fully. So usually a function residual capacity acts as a store for the oxygen. So what happens if low FRC, then limited oxygen reserve will be there. Hypoxic and hypercapnic response to ventilations are underdeveloped. So what are the cardiovascular system changes? There will be increased heart rate, immature ventricle, which will lead to fixed stroke volume. So what happens is cardiac output depend on the heart rate. So what is cardiac output? Cardiac output equal to stroke volume into heart rate. So since stroke volume is fixed, then if any demand arises, the cardiac output should be maintained by increasing the heart rate. So they are heart rate dependent. So underdeveloped sympathetic system will be there. So they are prone to bradycardia. So usually what happens is sympathetic system increases the heart rate and parasympathetic decreases the heart rate. Since the sympathetic system is not developed, so parasympathetic system will be more active. So they are prone to bradycardia. So any hypoxia, hypotension, or induction, the larger dose of induction agent can cause lead to bradycardia. So as you can see in this slide, the neonate respiratory rate will be 40 and heart rate will be 140. As the child reaches 12 months, respiratory rate will come down to 30 and heart rate it will come to 120. By the age of 3 years, it will be 25 and heart rate will be 100. And by 12 years, respiratory rate will be 20 and heart rate will be 80. So then we will go to the metabolism and temperature regulation. Higher metabolic rate is there, so higher oxygen consumption. So the child if you don't supplement oxygen, the child can go easily into hypoxia. They are prone to hypothermia because the body surface area compared to adults is very large per kilogram. Okay, so what happens is the heat loss will be more, so they are more prone to hypothermia. And usually what happens in adults is whenever you have hypothermia, there will be thermogenesis, means heat production by shivering. So you will feel very cold, you will start shivering, right? But in children, they don't have this mechanism, so it will be non-shivering thermogenesis. Okay, so even though the little bit shivering is there, it won't be enough to produce heat. Then renal and gastrointestinal system, immature kidney function approaches normal by 6 months of age, increased incidence of gastroesophageal reflux, more chances of vomiting, underdeveloped liver, reduced glycogen source, it can lead to hypoglycemia and impaired metabolism of the drugs. Okay, and weight. So how there will be weight change, like by by 6 months the weight will double of the birth weight. Weight will become double by the 6 months. Okay, by 1 year the weight will become triple of the birth weight. For example, if the child has 3 kg when born, by the 6 years 6 months child will be 6 kg. Okay, by 1 year child will be 9 kg. Okay, in neonates 75 to 80% of body weight is composed of water, and in infant total body weight water comes down to 70%. In adult it will be 60%. So pharmacological, we will go to pharmacological consideration. Drug should be given according to the body weight, not like in adult fixed dose as we give, not like that. We have to give according to the weight. So weight you can calculate age into 2 plus 9. You can calculate by this formula. For example, say that child is of 5 years. So 5 into 2, 10 kg plus 9. So 19 kg. So usually by 5 year children will be of around that 19 kg. Okay. So higher body water content, what it will do is there will be increased volume of distribution. Why this volume of distribution is important? Because see, whenever you give any our induction agent or muscle relaxant, the drug will distribute to other compartment. Okay, so first blood will be in blood, then it will go to other organs, fat, muscle, like that. Okay, so whenever there is increased volume of distribution, you have to give larger doses. And the immature renal and hepatic function, what it will do is delayed metabolism and excretion. Okay, so the drugs can act for longer time. So we have to keep those things in our mind. So particularly for inhalation anesthetic, what will happen to inhalation anesthetics in pediatric age group? There will be low FRC and higher respiratory rate. So what it will do is it will cause faster induction. Higher MAC is required. MAC means minimal alveolar concentration required for inducing the patient. Usually inhalational agents are preferred for induction. Higher chances of myocardial depression you can see in pediatric patients. So in this table you can see the MAC values of inhalational agents. Halothane in neonate is 0.9. As the age progresses, for infant it requires 1.1 to 1.2 MAC is required, and in small children 0.9, and adults the MAC value is 0.7. Okay, like that you can see sevoflurane, isoflurane, and desflurane. Usually what happens is in neonates the MAC required is little bit less. By infant it will be the highest, then for your small children it again decreases, and in adults the MAC value decreases. Okay, so then we will go to the IV induction agents. Larger dose is required because the higher volume of distribution, but early recovery from bolus dose because of the shorter elimination half-life and higher plasma clearance. Muscle relaxation. What happens to muscle relaxation? Succinylcholine should be avoided till child reaches walkable age. Okay, because succinylcholine acts on acetylcholine receptors. Actually, in children, the receptor will be changed. Means it is in children the receptor is not the same as what the adult is having. So what happens is the higher release of potassium will be there, and it can cause hyperkalemia and the consequences. So succinylcholine should be avoided till the child reaches walkable age. And non-depolarizing muscle relaxation should be preferred. We can intubate easily with the inhalational induction agent without using muscle relaxant. Larger dose required due to the increased volume of distribution. Opioid and benzodiazepines. Respiratory depression due to opioids and benzodiazepines are more common and may be due to the immature blood-brain barrier, immature liver and kidney function. So, pediatric anesthetic. So, what are the anesthetic risks? In pediatric perioperative cardiac arrest is one of the most common complication, means the death mainly because of the cardiac arrest. So, 82% of cardiac arrest happened at the time of induction. As you see in the graph, the cardiac arrest due to cardiovascular, this one was 21%. Respiratory cause, patient going into hypoxia and then causing cardiac arrest is 20%. Equipment related means like if you could not intubate, or when you are putting central line, you have injured any artery or something. So like that, equipment related is 7%. Okay, so medication related, like higher dose of some induction agent, or you have given any other drug which caused cardiac arrest. Okay, so this is the graph which is showing what is the reason for cardiac arrest. So you can see, as 82% of cardiac arrest is happened during the time of induction. So you have to be very careful during induction. So what are the anesthetic challenges? Okay, so challenges you can face due to challenges of altered physiology, separation anxiety, IV cannulation, difficult intubation and procedure, laryngospasm, hypothermia, extubation, and postoperative pain management. So pre-anesthetic evaluation. So what are the things you have to do during pre-anesthetic evaluation? Okay, try to win the confidence of the child or parents. Be friendly and be professional. If you become friend with the child can cooperate during pre-anesthetic evaluation, as well as when you take a patient to the operation theater. So proper history taking should be done. History pertaining to the current illness you have to do, and past history you have to do, and you have to ask especially about recent upper respiratory tract infection, because if upper URTA is there, then if you intubate, you can giving infection to the lower respiratory tract, and pneumonia something can become. So usually what happens is, if URTA is there, either surgery is postponed, or child is put into antibiotics. Okay, then birth history you have to ask. Any congenital anomalies is there, or coexisting diseases are there, you have to ask. And milestone and immunization history, food habits, everything you have to ask. In examination, you have to do general physical examination, systemic examination, and weight of the child you have to check. That is very important, weight of the child. Investigations, only HB if otherwise healthy ASA1 patient, and the surgery is minor surgery. If not, ask a specific required investigation. Explain the anesthetic plan and procedure to the patient party. Okay, take a written informed consent, and then explain about the fasting guidelines which is required, and pre-medications. So what are the fasting guidelines? So for clear fluid, 2 hours of NPO is required. For breast milk, 4 hours. For formula feed, 6 hours. And for solid food, 6 hours. NPO is required. So we'll come to pre-medication. Up to 6 months, no pre-medication is required. or oral atropine you can give, so that secretions you can reduce. Older than 6 months, sedatives and anti-syllagogues you have to give. So anti-syllagogue you can give atropine 0.05 mg per kg orally or 0.02 mg per kg intramuscular. You can also give glycopyrrolate. So in sedatives you can give oral, nasal or rectal. IM is preferred or IV. So which is preferred is oral, nasal and rectal are preferred over IM or IV. So nasal midazolam spray is also available. Okay, if syrup is not available, IV preparation can be given orally mixed with the honey or sugar water. So oral preparation should be given minimum 30 to 45 minutes before shifting. So midazolam 0.3 to 0.5 mg per kg, trichlorphos syrup 30 to 50 mg per kg, ketamine if you are giving 4 to 6 mg per kg, and fentanyl lollipop 5 to 50 microgram per kg. So those were the doses. Avoid IM whenever possible. IV is a better option if the child is having IV line. So intramuscular, if you are giving, the dose is midazolam 0.1 to 0.15 mg per kg, ketamine 2 to 3 mg per kg. If you are giving IV, midazolam should be given 0.1 mg per kg, ketamine 0.25 to 0.5 mg per kg, and fentanyl 0.5 to 1 microgram per kg you can give. So on the day of surgery, what are the things you are going to do is first you are check the identity, check NPO status, check the vitals, check for investigation which was asked, check whether consent form was signed, check any other pre-operative orders followed or not, give pre-medications if not given already. Things to keep ready inside OT for all cases. Check anesthesia machine, cylinder, central gas supply, breathing circuit, machine leak test, vaporizer. Monitor with the ECG, pulse oximeter, NIBP, ETCO2, temperature. Okay. Keep 2 working laryngoscope with the different size blades. 3 different appropriate size endotracheal tube, preferably microcraft. Stillet should be there. Airway, supraglottic airway device, suction catheter, different types of face masks, okay, rounded or RBS mask. One thing I forgot is the ambu bag also you have to keep. Okay, so this picture you can see we have kept two laryngoscopes ready. 80 tubes are ready, stillet is ready. Okay, so drugs are ready. So what is the breathing circuit we use is Jackson Rees breathing circuit. Okay, so you can see the 2 different size of bags are available, one for open circuit and one for closed circuit, and you have to keep face mask, okay, rounded, and RBS face mask you have to keep ready. Okay, so in this picture you can see the different types of blade, Miller's blade, Macintosh blade. Okay, in neonate, usually Miller's blade is preferred, and in older children, we can use Macintosh blade. So ET tubes, there are uncuffed ET tubes as well as microcuffed ET tube. Okay, then you have to, this is the picture showing oropharyngeal airway. So size, you can see different sizes are available. This is the picture which is showing how to calculate the right amount of, means the right size of the oropharyngeal airway. Then you have nasopharyngeal airway also. Okay, so other things which to be kept inside the OT are IV cannula, IV fluid, infusion set, plaster, light source, arterial cannulation set if indicated, syringes, drugs for induction, maintenance and emergency. Okay, check expiry, warmer, head ring, cotton for pressure points, cloth to cover the child. Okay, so this is the picture which is showing the light source and the vein finder. So this will help in uh, getting a IV access. Okay, so whenever possible, for neonate and infant, you can use pediatric drip set, and older children you have to use micro drip set. So extra things to be kept ready considering anesthetic procedure. So if subarachnoid block is there, spinal set you have to keep, and caudal block, caudal set. Okay, so accordingly you have to keep all these required things. Okay, if nerve plexus block is there, ultrasound or nerve stimulators you can keep extra. Okay, so if central line is there, yeah, ultrasound, central line set, all those things you have to keep ready. Now, how you are going to shift the patient to OT? Because they will, whenever you separate them from parents, they will have anxiety and they can start crying, and they can resist you to come inside the OT. So parents can accompany till the OT door or OT table to reduce anxiety. You can shift the child in a toy car or uh, something, rather than shifting in a stretcher toy, so that the child comes inside the OT happily. Inside the OT, as much as possible, distract the child and connect the monitor. Like this, you can see in the picture, you are showing some pictures or something or mobile. Okay, so that they kept distracted. Okay, IV line either directly you can take, or after inducing with the inhalational anesthetic. Convince the child that you are playing with him or her. Okay, if you don't do like if you don't sedate, or if child is very cranky, they can run away from the OT table. So IV line procurement, it is most important step. It is one of the difficult step in children. Half work is done if you take a proper IV line. So 24G or 22G is preferred. Light source or vein finder will help to find the vein. Easier if the child is sedated or under anesthesia. Emla cream, if applied 45 minutes before at the site of injection, can help to procure IV line in awake or under mild sedation. But one thing is there, 45 minutes before you have to apply. So IV fluid, so you should use half DNS with the 20 milli equivalent potassium chloride. You have to add that, and avoid isolate P. In older children, you can use RL. Avoid hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia. So in neonate, you can use infusion pump. In infant, you can use a pediatric infusion set, which I had showed in the figure. And other children, you can use micro drip set. So how do you going to calculate fluid requirement? What you have to do is you have to calculate fluid for every children and stick it to the anesthesia machine, so that you should be giving fluid according to the plan. So fluid requirement equal to deficit plus maintenance plus fluid loss. Deficit can be calculated as number of hours of NPO into weight into 4. Okay, so half of the deficit amount should be given in the first hour, and the remaining half should be given in next 2 hours along with the maintenance. So maintenance, how you are going to calculate maintenance is according to 4 to 1 rule. So first 10 kg, your 4 ml per kg per hour you have to give. Next 10 kg 2 ml per kg per hour, and next 10 kg 1 ml per kg per hour. That is 4 to 1 rule. So fluid loss, either it can be urine output, blood loss, or third space loss. Fluid replacement in case of blood loss will be, if you are giving crystalloid, it's 3 times the blood loss you have to replace. And if you are giving colloid or whole blood, 1 time the blood loss is enough. So third space loss, it varies according to the surgery. 1 to 10 ml per kg per hour you have to calculate. Okay, so for example, if it is a superficial surgery, there won't be any third place loss. So you need not add that. If it is an abdominal surgery or thoracic surgery, the blood loss means the third space loss can be 10 ml per kg per hour. So you have to add third space loss in those cases. Okay. So I will give one example, like child of 10 kg, NPO for 4 hours, posted for minor surgery. So what will be the deficit? Deficit will be, as you can see, number of hours of NPO, that is 4 hours, into kg weight, that is 10 kg, and into 4, that is 160 ml. So what will be the maintenance according to 4 to 1 law? First 10 kg, 4 into 10, that is 40 ml. So how you are going to give fluid for that child first hour? So half of the deficit should be given in first hour. So 80 plus maintenance 40 plus the urine output came in that hour. So 120 plus X. So X can be like a child can have 50 ml urine output. If 50 ml urine output, add 50, like that. Okay, if it was 10 ml, add 120 plus 10, so 130 ml, like that. So second hour, uh, 40 plus 40. Okay, what is that 40? The deficit what was 160 ml. So first hour you have given half of that, remaining half should be given in second and third hour. So 40 40 for second hour, third hour. And maintenance, always every hour the maintenance which record, that has to be added. Okay, so this is how you have to give fluid to the child. So in example 2, we will check if the child is 35 kg and NPO for 6 hours, posted for minor surgery. So deficit is 6 hours NPO into 35 kg into 4. So 840 ml is the deficit. So out of that 840 ml, 420 you will give in the first hour. Second hour, the remaining second and third hour, remaining half of that. So 210, 210. So maintenance, how you are going to calculate? 4 to 1. 4 into 10, 40 ml. 2 into 10, 20 ml, plus 1 remaining, 1 into the remaining weight, that is 15 kg. If your child was 40 kgs, then 1 into remaining 20 would have 20 ml. Okay, so here 35 kg, so 1 into 15 ml got 15 ml. So total 75 ml is the maintenance per hour. So then add all those things, so you will get the required fluid. In case of blood loss, add IV fluid 3 times the blood loss. According to the surgery, add third space blood loss. So total fluid should be given according to the calculation. Sufficient fluid status can be monitored by urine output. If central line is placed, then you can measure CVP also. Always calculate the fluid requirement, write and stick it so that it is visible clearly. So how you are going to induce anesthesia? Inhalational induction is preferred if IV line is not there. Sevoflurane or halothane is preferred induction inhalational agent. So the technique is called incremental technique. So what is increment? Slowly you go on increasing the concentration until the child becomes unconscious. Okay, scented face mask is more acceptable. If IV induction, then thiopentone, propofol, or ketamine you can use for the induction. So opioid should be given for pain relief. So fentanyl usually we use. So fentanyl 2 microgram per kg. Avoid succinylcholine in children less than 3 years of age. Okay, so these things you have to keep in mind. So what are things you have to keep ready is this fentanyl you have to dilute and keep. Okay, you have to dilute and keep thiopentone, you have to keep propofol. All those things are your job. Okay, so avoid succinylcholine in children, so don't keep succinylcholine nearby. Okay, so rocuronium you can use, or etracurium you can use, or vecuronium you can use for induction. So accordingly you have to dilute and keep all these drugs. Head should be in neutral position for laryngoscopy. Okay, in neonates, infants, Miller tube can be used. You have to lift the epiglottis with the blade and you have to intubate. So what is the correct size of endotracheal tube for the child? So there is a one calculation. So tube size, internal diameter equal to age in years divided by 4 plus 4.5. So accordingly, so if the child is of say 2 years, 2 by 2 is 0.5, so plus 4.5. So 5 size tube should be equal, it should be sufficient for 2-year old child. Okay, check bilateral air entry, fix the tube well. So where you are going to fix is orotracheal tube length equal to age in years by 2 plus 13. For if 1 year age child, then 1 divided by 2, that is 0.5 plus 13. So 13.5 should be the correct means place where you have to fix the tube. So how you are going to maintain um, anesthesia with the oxygen, nitrous, and inhalation agent? Tidal volume 10 ml per kg for children less than 3 to 5 years, and 6 to 8 ml per kg for older children. Respiratory rate should be set according to the age. Muscle relaxant top ups you have to give whenever a child comes out of muscle relaxant, and maintain under deep anesthesia. At the end of the surgery, paracetamol 15 mg per kg or diclofenac 1.5 mg per kg suppository you can put for. So extubation is one of the very important stage. Okay, extubating the child is one of the challenges you face. Okay, so reversal agent neostigmine with atropine you can add, or neostigmine with glycopyrrolate you can add. Wait for the child to be fully awake. Extubation should be done either child is fully awake or deep. If extubation in a higher plane of anesthesia, then there will be high chance of laryngospasm and respiratory depression. This is a video showing how you are going to extubate the child. You have to, like, a child should be very active and should start breathing by its own. Then only you have to extubate. Okay, so as you can see, child is very active and breathing very well. You can see the very good back movements. Okay, child is extubated, and once child is extubated, you have to keep the child in lateral position. Okay, recovery position, so that child should not aspirate it again. Okay, so if the child having any respiratory obstruction of the extubation, you can keep a nasopharyngeal airway. Or what you can do is you have done this patient, we have Okay, what we have done here is we have cut the endotracheal tube according to the required size, and then we have used this as a nasopharyngeal airway. This can be done whenever you don't have nasopharyngeal airway with you. Okay, so shifting the patient to post-op. Once the child is fully awake and you are satisfied with the recovery, you can shift in recovery position, that is lateral position. Okay, oxygen supplementation should be given throughout, and monitor should be there, means like you should not remove the monitor, so at least oxygen saturation should be monitored throughout. uh, so regional anesthesia, so whenever possible regional anesthesia can be given either as a sole anesthetic, but usually as a supplement to general anesthesia. Caudal block is the popular one. Subarachnoid block you can give in older children. Smaller size of epidural catheter can be placed. Nerve plexus block can be given. Okay, so caudal block, the most popular one given in the caudal space, usually it fuses by 5 to 6 years. So can be given for lower limb surgeries, abdominal surgeries. Duration it will act for 2 to 3 hours. So local anesthetic dose, surgery till inguinal region, then 1 ml per kg you can give. So surgery till umbilicus, you should give 1.5 ml per kg. So catheter can be placed for giving postoperative analgesia. Additives can be added to increase duration and for better pain relief. Adrenaline, fentanyl, clonidine, dexmedetomidine, etc. can be used. Failure of block hypertension, bradycardia, accidental subarachnoid injection, accidental IV injection, most common complications. So penile block is another popular block. Penile block can be used for circumcision. Adrenaline-free local anesthetic should be used. 1 to 3 ml lignocaine 2% or bupivacaine 0.5% can be used. Other blocks like subarachnoid block, epidural block can be given in cooperative older children. Brachial plexus block can be used for upper limb surgeries, especially for pain relief. Local anesthetic overdosing should be avoided. Post-op care. So what are the care you are going to give in the post-op? Okay, oxygen supplement, maintenance IV fluid. NPO can be broken once the child is wide awake and crying. Can allow patient to sit along with the child. Post-op pain management, diclofenac, paracetamol, suppository or syrup you can give. Opioid, fentanyl bolus or IV infusion you can give. Any block you can give like caudal block, epidural block, nerve block, infiltration of wound with the local anesthetic. Such things you can do. Okay, so what are the complications you see in these children? I mean, pediatric patients: delayed recovery, respiratory depression, laryngospasm, bronchospasm, bradycardia, hypoxia, postoperative apnea, nausea, vomiting, post-intubation group. These are the few complications you can see. Laryngospasm is very common in these children. So what you have to do is any upper respiratory tract obstruction or any stridor kind of things post extubation, you should suspect about this laryngospasm. So how you are going to treat laryngospasm is by giving 100% oxygen and positive pressure ventilation, and you can deepen the plane of anesthesia with either small dose of propofol or if the obstruction is very severe, then you can give small dose of succinylcholine. Okay, so conclusion is anesthesia for pediatric patient is challenging. Reaction time is very small, so have to be well prepared. So what are the questions you can get in your exam is you can get a major question like this 6 months child posted for herniatomy or something like a cleft palate. Write a detail in preparation conduct of anesthesia. Okay, so you have to write accordingly. That will be long question, and you can get a smaller short note like anatomical and physiological changes in child compared to adult, caudal anesthesia or laryngospasm, like that. You can get a short note. So these are my references where I have compiled all this topic. Thank you.